in an advisory capacity to the mayor and city council. There are two types of public hearings that this commission conducts. The first is a legislative hearing whereby we formulate recommendations on certain land use requests. My recommendations are then forwarded onward to the city council, who makes decisions on legislative matters. The second type of public hearing is quasi-judicial in nature, meaning that the requests are specific to a parcel of land. I am authorized to make decisions on requests for special use permits, variances, preliminary plat time extensions, and planned unit developments that do not involve the subdivision of land. However, any decision I may make tonight is by no means final. Anyone that believes that he or she has been aggrieved by my decision has a right to file an appeal to the city council. On quasi-judicial requests that involve the subdivision of land, rezones, and annexation, I am authorized to only make recommendations to the city council, who will make the decision. The hearing procedures as required by Idaho Code and the City of Caldwell are as follows. Staff will first present a report on the application. The applicant or the applicant's representatives will then present the summary of the request. 3, testimony of those in support will be taken, followed by testimony from those in neutral position, followed by those in opposition. 4, I will allow the applicant or applicant's representatives rebuttal. After rebuttal testimony is given, public testimony is closed, and no new or oral or written testimony will be allowed unless I elect to reopen the testimony. The time limits for testimony are as follows. The applicant will receive 10 minutes. Those testifying in favor, neutral, opposed, and rebuttal will all receive 5 minutes. I accept oral and written testimony from those in attendance, but only if you sign the sign-up sheet to speak. When testifying before me, you must come to the podium, state your full name and address, and acknowledge that you've been sworn in. Well, we're not swearing in. Strike that. I ask everyone to treat all parties with fairness and respect. We will not tolerate any outbursts, etc. I also ask those in the room to please turn off your cell phones. I'm a volunteer hearings examiner and receive small compensation for my efforts. I am charged by law to keep a clear record of the proceedings, consider factual testimony, and to stay within the city's and state's rules and regulations. We, the city staff, thank you for your courtesy to us and to others as we move through the process. With that, we go to this evening's agenda. The first action item, this consent calendar, is the approval of the June 28, 2022 hearing examiner meeting minutes, and so approved with corrections. The no items in the old business and new business. First case listed for the agenda is we'll ask the staff to make presentation on case number SUP 22-000010. Request by Gene King to construct a 2-story duplex on parcel R04757. With that, ask the staff to make a presentation, please.
Emma Hill, Associate Planner. Thank you, Mr. Hearing Examiner. So this is the applicant is requesting a special use permit to construct a 2-story duplex on approximately 1.4 acres in the Central Business District. I would like to note in the staff report, I mentioned that it's M1 zoning. That is incorrect. This property is located in the Central Business District as well as Indian Creek Corridor. The subject property was previously located at 1106 Arthur. However, per our mapping department, it is now, the new address is 1106 Arthur Street. The applicant is requesting to construct, like I said, a 2-story duplex. And I would also like to note that our Assistant City Engineer, Ashley Newberry, pointed out that being in the Indian Creek Corridor, flooding is not an issue. And I will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Emma. The application was not complete as far as the actual application from the applicant. I'm entering that in the record. I'll call this exhibit SU 22-10-1. And I believe the records show that it was submitted on May 24th, 2022. And we will refer to this application in the discussion. The primary part of the application is it does require a special use permit, and just a question for him is this is the way in the central business district if a duplex is allowed is through the special use permit, correct?
Yes, in our code, table 10-12-1 indicates that a duplex is permitted with a special use permit in the central business district.
Thank you very much. The next part of that, well, let me just back up a little bit. I'm reading from the Special Use Permit Procedures Code, Section 10-03-04 from the Caldwell Zoning Code. And there's two general provisions that I wanted to get on the record. In reading from the code, general provisions, item 2, subset A, it asks to determine whether or not the use would cause any damage, hazard, nuisance, or other detriment to persons or properties in the vicinity. Emma, would you agree that this does not present that issue, those issues?
It does not.
In the next paragraph, B, a special use permit may be granted. The proposed use is conditionally permitted by the terms of ordinance and subject to conditions pursuant to specific provisions of the ordinance. The ability of political subdivisions, including school districts, to provide services in proposed use. My question is that the political subdivisions are able to provide services for this site.
Yes, they are.
And that's not been an issue. And follow up on that, I didn't see a response with the exception of our engineering department. We had no other fire, police, et cetera, responses. Okay.
That is correct.
And was there a floodplain map submitted with this application?
There was not, no.
Or a letter or something to that effect?
No, I believe this was just a verbal or email confirmation with Ashley Newberry, and she did not submit anything, or it's not on the record, but she did not have any official comments or problems with it.
And so would this be, for example, in the AO zone or something, in the A zone of some kind?
To my knowledge,
Or
I
the
don't believe it's in a zone at all. I believe it.
That's an X then?
Yes.
Okay. Great, thank you. Just for the record, approximately how close is this to the Indian Creek?
The Indian Creek corridor, one of our borders, runs through the south end of the property, but I believe it is across the street from the actual creek itself.
It'd be 200 feet, something like that?
Approximately.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'd like to discuss the Indian Creek ordinance itself. And it has a lot of criteria that we would want to examine. This is section 1012-06, the city center Indian Creek corridor design requirements, which pertains to this application. And so I would just like to ask you about the compliance of this application with some of the items, not all of them, but we'll go through the ones that seem to be most pertinent. And this is just sort of a yes or no. Does it comply or does it not comply? And the guiding principles that this new use, proposed use, relates to existing development. In other words, it fits.
It does.
Um, Item F under that. Um, does this in some way address the special opportunity of Indian Creek? Um, it's across the street in another lot, so it's not, is there anything that, in your discussions with the applicant, that might address that issue?
I don't believe so. It doesn't impede the creek itself. It's still accessible on the other side. There is a crosswalk on the side of the other side as well as the duplex side.
And then, is there any kind of pathway at this point of the creek? Or is it just all private property?
I don't believe it connects. Oh, wait. It doesn't connect directly, but
Oh,
if
thank you.
you can see on the map, the pavement starts on the opposite side of 11th to the pathway that.
Oh, okay. Um, and so that has no bearing on this property or the alleyway behind it?
It does not, no.
Is the alleyway considered an extension of the trail? Just a public alleyway?
It's just a public alleyway.
Okay, thank you. At item H under 3 guiding principles, does this minimize the appearance of unattractive elements?
No, it does not. I believe it adds to that property, especially since it is vacant currently.
Yeah, in other words, it does minimize. So that's the other question. We do have a vacant lot. The aerial shows something. I guess the aerial is out of date.
The aerial is the most up to date.
So there's just like a concrete pad is what I'm looking at.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, thank you. And item J under the guiding principles, does this create a multifunctional and attractive streetscape?
Yes, it doesn't impede on the existing sidewalk either.
Okay, is there sidewalk work required with this, or will this be, or is the existing sidewalk serviceable?
I believe the existing will be serviceable.
Okay. And is there a condition about the sidewalk or
There is not, no.
does there need to be? I mean, we're okay with that.
You can add one just to maintain or keep the current sidewalk up to standard, but it doesn't need to be there.
Okay, thank you. Now, relate to new existing development, sub-item A, under guiding principles. This is something that I don't know anything about. Could you help me? It's number one, buildings should reflect a minimum of 2 elements of the Richardsonian Romanesque, the revival, the Main Street revival, or the Spanish architectural style, or combination thereof, as listed in subsection 10-12-057 of this article, et cetera. Is this part of the design, or is it a requirement in this case?
Director Mapp informed me that since it is in the central business district, that those do not apply the design requirements.
Okay, so to a non-commercial building, or is it any building? I mean,
Any building.
only commercial. In other words, do only commercial buildings have to respect that clause? Is that the way it's set up? This is my own edification. I'm learning here.
Mr. Examiner, the central business district covers a larger area, which basically is the downtown. City center is a smaller portion. City center has design guidelines for any structure within city center. Central business district does not require same specifications as in the city center.
Well, thank you, Mr. Matt. Now, could you So does that apply to, this whole section? We have A, relate to new existing development, B, create a visually interesting and inviting environment. Is that just the CBD?
That's only in the city center.
So the remaining, page and a half of criteria here, may not apply
Correct,
to this application.
correct.
Okay. Um, One thing I do know, just in support of this application, item 4 talks about usable raised porches and terraces are encouraged on the street sides of residential buildings to create opportunities for neighborhood interaction. I appreciate the design that has the porches out on the street front and the entryway, pardon me, the entryway through sidewalks with an alley loaded parking. I think that addresses that feature. And I'd also like to discuss it, and we'll talk to the applicant about this. Item 5 here, side and rear facades of buildings should contain windows of similar character as the street side windows to create a sense of architectural continuity for all sides of the building, and also provide eyes on the street for safety. Now, this seemed to be one area with the application that the side yard fenestration is very minimal. It's from the drawings I have, I'm not sure even what the fenestration is, or if there is some. But I would like to ask that question of the applicant, that they have addressed this particular clause in the ordinance. Director Mapp, again, it talks about, in section D of the code, about promote sustainable design. This is not particularly pertain to this application, or can we talk about things like energy efficient design?
I'm sorry, what's that question again, please?
Can we talk about energy efficient design with this application, or is that just for commercial structures? Under item D, 1 and 2.
It would be any structures. I did not review the sustainability.
So that could be a valid concern here about energy efficiency in the design.
I did not talk to the developer regarding this. That'll be a question for him.
Okay. Emma?
On the, I believe it's the second, or, excuse me, the first page of the site plan. Actually, let me double check. First page of the site plan, it does say at the top that the proposed building has been designed to meet or exceed the requirements of the International Energy Conservation Code.
Okay. That seems to address items 4 and 5 here, or 1 and 2 under D. Also talks about energy efficient lighting. I guess we'll have the discussion. And but again, it supports the application here under item F, address the special opportunity of Indian Creek. It states the building facades facing Indian Creek, which this does, should be open to the creek environment with windows and doors where applicable to outside dining areas. So that's good design. Thank you, Ms. Hill. I think that covers the Indian Creek portion of this, and that I would like to have the applicant make your presentation, please, and we'll discuss some of these same issues.
Good evening, sir. And thank you, Emma, for presenting, this duplex. I'm with Fall Creek Homes, Brad Beckley.
Yeah, name and address, please, yes.
Brad Beckley, 1980 South Meridian Road, Suite 140, Meridian.
Okay, thank you.
So we're requesting the special use permit to construct the duplex. They're on Arthur Street. I'm the general contractor. I own Fall Creek Homes. I believe we've met all the requirements, setback requirements, landscaping requirements, neighborhood meeting, which we have agreed to construct a 6-foot fence, which we had planned on doing anyways, with the adjacent property to the west, which is a commercial use currently. Also at our roundtable meeting, we agreed to pave the remainder of that alleyway, which is 16 feet wide. So that will also take place.
To the property edge?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, sir. Not sure, it's pretty straightforward, and as far as energy compliance, the National Building Code keeps us, pretty much everything that is built, honestly, is to compliance. The homes are extremely efficient these days. I don't know that I could get material that isn't efficient.
And do you have an exhibit?
I do
showing
not.
the site plan elevations and so forth?
I don't. It's included in this packet, but I do not have I do not. I apologize if I should have. I know it's in the packet here at the back with the elevations. We've got the front porch area that is facing Arthur. And we do have a little awning porch over the entryway on the side of the home as well. Yeah, I believe on the back of the paperwork that I received has got the floor plan and the elevations. Do you have that?
Yes, I'm looking at it now. It's small. I was hoping to get something on the screen. Rob, is that possible to get the elevation and site plan on the screen? Exhibit A3. I had, or at least I'd like to go over the landscaping plan. It's just because I can't read it. It's so tiny.
It's very small.
If you could just describe the landscaping, we get that up on the screen.
Okay, I know that we've got 2 trees out in the front, back off of the sidewalk. One is existing, which we were gonna leave there. It's probably a 30 or 40-year-old tree. So we're gonna incorporate that on the one unit and then put something similar to that. I believe it calls it out on that landscaping plan on the other unit.
Okay.
And it will
thank
be
you.
all automatic sprinklers and low maintenance.
Okay, yeah, just up a little bit and over. Yeah, that's landscaping. So, what's going on in the backyard?
Backyard is the garage, so it'd be
Okay, so that all paved,
it'll all be concrete off the garage out to the
boundary to boundary?
alleyway. I'm sorry?
It's the whole boundary to boundary will be paved?
No, on the sides, so just the garage width, and then on
Okay.
the sides we'll do a ground cover, which it'll be a rock bark or we'll stay away from any wood chips or try to stay with something that looks nice and will
Okay, then,
low maintenance.
what is like a white strip on the edge of the alley, is that just concrete, or what's going on with that?
That's the back of the garage there.
That's back in the garage, okay, there we go.
Yeah.
So you just have these, strips, what, are they 4-foot strips on either side?
Yeah, that's 6 foot.
And, that'll just be a low maintenance lawn or,
Yeah, we'll put a
Cover.
rock bark in there. So we'll put a hardscape cover with a weed barrier underneath to prevent weeds from coming up.
okay, and what about the sides of the house? The side yards, looking across the neighbors?
That'll also be a rock bark or something. The problem with grass, when you get into those shady areas, it holds a lot of moisture and it can create drainage issues. So,
Okay,
it's really better for the home and for the neighbors and for the adjacent parcels to put a hardscape and avoid having sprinklers.
so let's talk about the side elevations. This is drawing I have, here, I assume these are the side yards. Is that, are these windows, these long horizontal,
So there is a window in there, yes, and then the
these two
doorway,
are the windows?
and then the entrance as well to each unit.
Okay. It's really difficult to see
So,
here.
yeah, you'll come off of Arthur and come down the side of the unit on each side of the lot. So the east side and the west side, and that's where the entrance will be.
Yeah, it's really hard for me to read that, but you do have, looks like upper story windows. My copy is so grayed out that I can't really see. But you've got, second story windows,
Yes,
okay, and, the doors, and there's windows by the doorways.
yes.
Yeah, that's fairly bleak.
I do have it pretty clear on my phone copy if you're interested in looking at that.
Okay, see this is, you know, I'm making the final decision here, so I have to be really clear on
Sure.
what it is, unless you decide to appeal the decision, whichever. But, so I just want to, you know, have a good look at, the architecture here. What is the siding consist of, and what are you thinking about colors?
So we haven't decided on colors, but something earth tone or, there's lots of popular colors right now, grays, whites, earth tones, nothing like a bright orange or a bright red, something that fits in with the neighborhood. As far as material goes, it will not be vinyl siding. It will be a wood product, engineered wood product for the siding.
Okay, what are the housing colors, like on either side of this? I mean, the ordinance talks about basically they want you to blend in.
Right, I would have to verify,
Okay.
to be honest with you.
Yeah, we're looking, you know, very interested in, that, just blending in the neighborhood, looking good with what's there, and,
Sure.
you know, I hope that's the kind of color scheme you're looking at. All right,
And this is a long-term investment for the King family. I think they want something nice as well that blends into the neighborhood and adds value, and like I said, it's a long-term investment, so it's something they wanna do right and have it look nice and be appealing.
great. So back to the landscaping, what does the front yard treatment look like?
There's a grass area, and then up bordering the home will be that hardscape We, you put a rock down, and then there's a front lawn area up by the trees that just, kind of conforms to the rest of the neighborhood and the homes around.
I'm not familiar with the neighborhood, but, are there landscaping features in the neighborhood that are compelling, that might work with this design?
We pretty much designed it to really mimic everything around it in the neighborhood. There's actually a lot of unsightly stuff across the street, on some of the neighboring lots that, just a grass area with the rock bark and a hardscape will look very nice.
Yeah, just well, let's say the design is pretty Spartan. Uh, I was looking for the features that would, bring a little, life to the neighborhood. Uh, I mean, it's kind of vague, but, we want it to be good design and, um, it's rather sparse here. I think it basically complies with the code, but everything is at a bare minimum.
Right.
It because of the Indian Creek corridor and a special use permit requirement, you're looking for something a little bit, on the more designer-esque end of the scale.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
so-
If there was something, it would probably be the caliper of the tree on the one unit. There's an existing tree there. Obviously, you wouldn't be able to find a tree like that to put on the unit next to it on the other side of the sidewalk. But something a little bit bigger where it's a 3-inch caliper tree, maybe 10 foot. Something a little bit larger would really help dress up that other side, which that's been discussed as well.
Yeah, that would certainly help.
Yeah.
Are there?
It's really a small area, that yard. It's hard to, I mean, we've got the shrubs in there, but you also want to be conscious of water use and that as well, and not put too many plants in there that they use up too much water. And
That's true. What is the frontage width of the property?
it's,
Just roughly.
I believe it's 30 feet.
Okay. Great.
Nope, I'm wrong. It's 50 feet.
So back to landscaping, particularly on the front, the kind of the idea of the Indian Creek corridor is to make that a community, make it, integrate into the street, into the sidewalk, and and people, they have the pathway just through the block there along Indian Creek, and so just looking for a real nice front yard that kind of speaks to that.
Sure.
Do you have any other ideas along those lines that might help that out?
Truly just a little bit larger tree and leaving that existing tree that is there. Really, it takes up quite a bit of space. If you look at that it's a 20-foot front yard setback. So when you take in consideration the sidewalk and that tree, it really doesn't leave, there's not a whole lot of room. It looks like it on the drawing, but to scale and reality of it is it's a very limited space.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your testimony. Is there anything you wanted to add?
I don't believe so. We look forward to working with you and
Well,
bringing something nice to that area. That was the draw for the King family, being next to Indian Creek. They've done a couple other projects here in the city, and yeah, look forward to.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, sir, and you'll have an opportunity to rebuttal if the occasion arises. So I would like to go to the next person. Robert Pilot.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. My name is Robert Pilot, and my address is
Pilot,
1102 Arthur. I share the property line to the west of the applicant. I'm just here in support. I can tell you that we've been at that location. We run our corporate office out of that address for about 5 years now. And the previous property had a home well over 100 years on it that was greatly dilapidated, and I think there was a lot of nefarious activities there. I would not be exaggerating if I said that either the police or the fire were at that location once a month. So we're really excited to see this infill project. I hope that this board, as well as the city, will support it. I have one caveat to the applicant, though, that I'd like to maybe bring up to your attention now, is that alley is fairly active. And our property to the west there has parking available for our business during business hours. And we struggle with parking from surrounding areas. There's a dog groomer location to the south. And so my only concern really would be any overflow parking to the multifamily units. And I think it could be resolved as simply as signage in the alley that says towaway zone, or signage on our property that says cars will be towed, because it really bottlenecks if anyone parks it. It's only 16 foot wide, and by the time you get trash cans and things like that in that alley, things come to a screeching halt if anyone's parking in the alley. So otherwise, I am in 100% support. I talked to them at the neighborhood meeting, and they've agreed to provide a fence between our property lines. Previously, the owners on that site were, the yard was so full of trash that their children played in our yard. And I think that that's all been resolved. It was a great day when we saw that house torn down, I can assure you. So with that, I would stand for any questions. Otherwise, thank you for your time.
I appreciate your testimony. I do have a question about the blending into the neighborhood. Is there features on your property that would function on this adjacent property?
Well, these are all original city lots, so they're 25 by 120 or something like that. They're pretty small by the time you get a house on it. I think that the key element is going to be that whatever is put in as a landscaping feature is maintained. That seems to be this biggest struggle in this older neighborhood. We've really spent a lot of time to try and keep our land and our yard looking green and mowed and healthy. And there are quite a few other addresses on that block that don't give the same consideration. There's really not a lot of room on the lots. They're pretty small. And I understand the concern about Indian Creek, but really the official designed Indian Creek portion stops at 11th. So it's pretty well undeveloped from there forward, so.
Okay, well, just a straight question does this design seem compatible with your structure?
I think so. Our building is over 100 years old as well. We have kind of a greenish shake shingle siding. The house to the south is gray, I believe. It's an older community. There's really not a lot of room for bells and whistles, but I think as long as there's some assurances it's well maintained, it'll be a huge improvement to the property. I think the house that was there was robin egg blue, so we're already a step ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Pilot. Appreciate that. We have no further testimony. People signed up. Mr. Beckley, would you care to make rebuttal, or you have more to add? Okay. With that, I'll close the hearing. and go to the analysis. The staff report presents ordinances, and part of our testimony here, and ordinances specific to Indian Creek Corridor design requirements, section 10-1206, and the special use ordinance, and we reviewed those in this hearing, and that would be section 10-0304, and noted that the duplex in the CBD zone does require this special use permit. The goal of the Indian Creek Corridor design requirements is to respect the Indian Creek Corridor and find a compatibility with the neighborhood, with the setting, with new structures. And through our testimony we've heard tonight and the staff report, it seems like that compatibility has been achieved with this design. On page 3 of 11, I do want to back up a little bit, just so it makes the minutes, item 2.4, page 1, the zoning has been corrected by staff as CBD-ICC, Central Business District, Indian Creek Corridor. Just be clear on that. On page 3, we have the comprehensive plan analysis. I won't go over that except to say that I concur with the goals and policies stated to support this proposal as submitted by staff, and I accept those, and the ordinance of the analysis, or the analysis of the ordinance, that we find in here. Look at pardon me, page 3 of the staff report. We have the findings of fact as follows. The Caldwell hearing examiner accepts the facts outlined in the staff report, public testimony, and the evidence list. All adopted city ordinances, standards, and codes were used in evaluating the application. The proposed use is conditionally permitted by the terms of the ordinance and subject to conditions of approval. Conclusions of law. The Caldwell hearing examiner has the authority to hear this case in order that it be approved or denied. The public notice requirements were met, and the hearing was conducted within the guidelines of applicable Idaho code and city ordinances. The order of decision, page 4 of the staff report, based on the findings of facts and conclusions of law, the Caldwell hearing examiner hereby orders that case number SUP 22-000010, request by Gene King for special use permit to construct a 2-story duplex within the Central Business District and within the Indian Creek Corridor, located at 1106 Arthur Street, parcel number R04757 in Caldwell, Idaho, is approved with the following conditions of approval. And they are as follows. There are the staff report lists conditions 8.2 through 8.10. And I would like to add the following. On condition 8.9, to add at the end of that sentence, it says, provided in Exhibit A-3, dated May 24th, 2022. I'm adding to item 8.6, comply with the Caldwell landscape ordinance, and install larger caliper trees. As discussed in the hearing. And add condition point 11.811. Signage should be provided to, clarify the parking for this property, and note that it's, the parking in the adjacent lot is not available for this use. With that, I conclude this hearing, and I thank you all very much. Moving to the next item on the agenda. Let's see. Here. These exhibits go with it. Action item 2, case number SUP 22 -006. Thank you. Request by David Baker of AIM Sign on behalf of Canyon Crossing Storage for a special use permit to install a 98 square foot electronic reader board on a 40-foot pylon sign in the C3 service commercial zone. With that, I'd like the staff to make their presentation on this application, please.
Sorry. As stated, this is case number SUP 00006. A request by David Baker of Abe Sign on behalf of Canyon Crossing Storage for a special use permit to install a 98 square foot electronic reader board on a 40-foot tall pylon sign in a C3 service commercial zone. The special use permit is to increase the maximum electronic reader board from 48 square feet to 98 square feet. The subject property is located approximately 1,400 feet northwest of the Franklin Road interchange. Mr. Hearing Examiner, the site is, as stated, is along I-84. It's in a C3 zoning classification. Currently on the site, there's construction of some mini storage units on the site. To the north, you have residential development. I believe those are fourplexes, and then you have single family further. So as you see where it says 2704 Hawaii, along the I-84 corridor, the sign is located along that area. I don't have an exact spot where it's located. So the property that's identified as 2704, that area is zone C3, which is service commercial. to the north, to the, is residential. From the engineering department, we have no comments in regards to the development. We have the findings of facts and conclusion law as written in the staff report. Staff only had really 3 issues. I should mention that Alex Jones, who originally wrote the staff report, fell ill this week, so I'm covering for him. Chatting. 3 issues are the size of the billboard, or excuse me, not billboard, but the sign. Twice as large as the code requires, but the code is conservative on the sign size. It provides a latitude to expand the size of the sign based upon conditions and testimony by the particular applicant. Number 2, staff's concern is there's no information regarding illumination of the sign. As you can tell, there are residents in the area definitely far away from this particular sign, but we don't know if there'll be any impact regarding lighting bleeding into the surrounding area. And 3, that the applicant's required to put landscaping underneath the sign. They have provided a landscaping plan. I would just say that the owner of the sign, we've had issues in the past regarding landscaping requirements. We're assured that the landscaping will be placed on the site, but I want to make sure that that is on the record, that the landscaping requirements are required and are not going to be modified. With that information, Mr. Hearing Examiner, I will question any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mapp. I do have some questions. If this sign did not have a reader board, what is the maximum square footage of one face of the sign allowed under the code?
I can't answer that particular question other than that the reader board requirements are 48 square feet.
If there was no reader board, what is the maximum square footage of that sign allowed?
Let us look that up in the code. What is your other question as we're looking that up?
Okay. You mentioned the landscaping. See, I'm not seeing much here for the landscaping. At least I'm just having a hard time. They are showing some landscaping. The question I have is, I'm looking at this exhibit, which is a site plan showing, let's see, yeah, this is a landscape plan, but it's also showing structures. The aerial, or what is there? Are these structures on the site, or are they proposed?
Emma Hill again. In regards to your previous question, pole and ground signs are only allowed to be 12 feet, and all of pole and ground signs 15 feet or greater or above have to have an adjoining grade. Wall signs in one individual section of a wall may exceed 40 64 square feet in area. And those are the, height requirements for, other signs, not electronic.
So Ms. Hill, that, it's still not clear, if this were not a reader board, what would it be, 64 feet would be the maximum size for that location and that type?
64 would be correct if, the supporting, joining grade of the supporting display surface was also greater than 64 feet. So 64 feet, yes.
On one side. So, what is the, Mr. Mapp, what is the total square footage of this, sign proposed? That's, 15 by, I had a hard time reading it, so that's like
15,
20 by 20.
15 feet, 9 inches, and 20, which I believe.
So 19 by,
$19 by 23.
okay.
Shown on the screen, widest distance is 19 feet. Down to Canyon Crossing, the actual sign, that's only 15.
So roughly, I'm getting 437 square feet on, per side. But I don't know if it's in the application. So let's assume that it's somewhere north of 400 square feet and, on one side, and the prescribed maximum in the zoning code is 64 square feet. Is that correct?
Could you repeat your question again?
Yeah, I'm still looking for the total square footage versus the maximum allowed in the zone. So I get 64 in the zone and 437 in the application. More or less.
Mr. Hearing Examiner, apologize, but I'm not finding code says 48 says 98. I would have the applicant respond to your question.
But the sign code allows 64 square feet maximum without a special use permit.
Yes,
Okay, thank you. Um, and back to the structures, are the structures on site? Are they already built?
I believe they're still under construction,
The storage units?
for a number of months. Maybe the applicant might, have some information on that. Sure the neighbors do.
Yeah, I'm just seeing dirt on the aerial. Okay, well, we'll talk to the applicant about that. And one more question, Mr. Mapp. You said you were unable to find a sign of this size that's been approved recently? A similar, a comparable sign?
Yes, Mr. Area Examiner, I went through, our applications for special use permits, and I did not find any, signs comparable except for the McDonald's sign. McDonald's sign happens to be 80 feet tall, 10-inch, emblem. But my assumption is that the other signs in the area, applied to the ordinance, so they didn't have to come in special use permit.
Okay, so the next largest comparable is 11 by 14, roughly on the McDonald's site.
I wouldn't call it comparable because, for McDonald's, they just said their emblem, M. So, compared to this sign, which will be a complete rectangle
Okay, yeah.
mounted to a pole.
And one more question on in this zone or or in the proximity of the interstate, are there different sign criteria for signs along the interstate than signs that are not along the interstate, as far as square footage is concerned? So I apologize, I didn't read the sign code. I would really need to know what that,
It has to meet the requirements of the international, sign code and the international building code. Comply to that. Other sign, well, a pole sign is different than a billboard. Something totally different. Determine. Yeah, so we're talking about two different types of signs.
and this is not a billboard,
Not a billboard.
okay?
Billboard distance is 13 separation.
And then we're not,
This is not a billboard. This is a pole sign.
yeah, when I was reviewing these applications with the city of Boise, we were trying to eliminate billboards, and there was a grandfathered number of billboards allowed on the interstate in the city of Boise. Does it, something like that, you're saying that pertains here as well?
No, this is not a billboard.
Okay. All right, so, there's, no bonus, in size or dimension for it being on the freeway, fronting on the interstate?
No.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Mr. Mapp. With that,
I wanted to clarify that
Oh,
I
yeah.
made an error here, is that the landscaping that's currently required many storage units. So that has already been, taken care of. So there's a landscaping issue.
Okay. Um, With that, I'd like to ask the applicant, please, to make your presentation.
David Baker, 1976 South Century Way, Boise, Idaho, 83709.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, so, the first thing I'll point out on the sign itself, I know you mentioned 64 square feet. I, for some reason, can't pull up the ordinance right now on my phone. However, if, I think that's referring to the wall sign section of the ordinance. Further down in the signed ordinance, you'll see a section on freestanding signs. And I believe in this zone, it's based upon the linear frontage of I-84. So in this particular case, the storage yard has 726 foot of linear frontage along I-84. So, the pylon sign, this sign here is allowed a particular number of square feet per lineal feet along that roadway. So on this, this request we have here, what we're looking to do is get an allowance increase on the message center portion. The sign portion itself does conform to the square footage without the message center. However, due to the setback from the freeway and the visibility from passing traffic along 84, where the business owner is trying to convey his messages, the size of the message center does not scale well to the size of the sign. So we're asking for an increase in that allowance in order to more closely match how big the sign is allowed to go. So going from 48 up to 98, in absolute terms, it sounds like a lot. However, the size of that message center in relation to the entire sign cabinet is only about 30% of the sign. I believe the director mentioned some also concerns about brightness, and so these signs are built with what's called a photocell in the sign that it automatically senses the light conditions currently. So in the daytime, where it's competing with sunlight, it's going to be brighter. At night, however, the sign automatically goes down to as much as 5% of its capability. This is because the sign does not need to be as bright at night because it's dark in the surrounding environment. The other thing that helps mitigate brightness levels is that the sign is oriented only toward the I-84 corridor, so the passing traffic on either side of I-84. Once you get beyond that angle focused at I-84, the brightness or the colors of the message center start to go to zero. So if you're looking at the side of it, you wouldn't see much at all in terms of light coming off of that message center. And then I have a write-up from the manufacturer to enter into the record on that goes into much more detail on that, and I can definitely answer questions in that regard as well. And I don't know if you were able to find any portion of the ordinance where I was alluding to on the freestanding part to.
We'll have a discussion.
Okay.
Well,
Mr. Mann?
Mr. Hearing Examiner, this probably will be a good time to bring this up so he
Yeah.
can respond. I apologize for not knowing this in detail. This is our sign ordinance. Signs, C, 1 animated reader board or changeable copy sign may be permitted per street frontage only when it's used in conjunction with and as part of a business sign identifying a permitted or approved special use permit that shall not exceed 48 feet in area per animated reader board or changing copy sign. Sign permits are required prior to the installation. Standalone animated reader boards or signs or changeable sign copies are not permitted. So what we're looking at, as the applicant has mentioned, is, and I'm assuming is the part that says RV storage available.
That's correct. What makes this sign different than a billboard is that this is only allowed to display messages pertinent to the property's usage.
And so, I'm sorry, this is Jerome Mapp speaking again. So, what we're speaking about is the report area, which on the exhibit identifies as RV storage available. Was to go from 48 to 98 square feet. It's not in relationship to the other portion of the sign, which is allowed by code. Talking about that lower portion, can't see what the
So, Mr. Maps, the code, given the 726 linear foot frontage on that rear property line, the approximately 437 square foot of the sign is allowable according to that criteria.
if that's the number that you've come up with, I'm showing 9 inches height. Three and a half inches.
Yes, 6 foot 3.5 by 15 foot 9 inches, the changeable electronic reader board portion of the sign.
So I believe what the applicant is saying, he'll correct me, is that this sign fits the sign of where it says Canyon Crossing. The sign was smaller. Two signs would not be compatible.
That's correct. Shrinking the electronic reader board portion of the sign to only 48 square foot would not allow clean visibility from the interstate, given the setback required on that property.
Mr. Mapp, so I'm still looking at the overall size of this. The proposed approximately 437 square foot of the one face of that sign is allowed under the code.
As I was looking at this, I was looking at the entire sign. Explanation of the applicant. The reader board is what's under consideration. The brown sign, as it shows in the exhibit, I read this, is that a smaller sign would not be proportionate complete sign. Correct.
Yes, and
Thank
given
you,
the
Mr. Mapp.
given the 726 foot of frontage, that that sign is within Caldwell's ordinance for total overall square footage.
And Mr. Baker, what exactly is that sign face square footage?
Uh, the portion that says Canyon Crossing is, 327 square feet.
Okay, I mean, the whole,
The
The whole
entire
chunk.
thing is 427.
okay, so, and also, if you would, just answer the question about, the storage structures are already there?
Yes, those,
Okay.
there are multiple storage buildings being constructed now. They're probably complete at this point. They're, I believe, single-story garage-type self-storage units.
Uh, Okay, then that, storage facility is, not implied as part of this, application, just the reader board.
Yes, this permit is solely for the reader board portion of this pylon sign.
Okay,
Yes.
Let's see, just, one more question. I guess we have the total height of 40 feet, something. And, what is the setback from the property line?
This is 36 feet away from the water and sewer line easement, and that is approximately 70 feet away from the interstate.
Okay, thank you. Now, the question I have, and this is, some kind of business decision, but, the reader board itself seems to be something you can do just because you can do it. If you're wanting people to be aware of the location of Canyon Crossing RV storage, that's a lighted sign.
Yes.
I mean, it's, personally, I don't see, if I were making this investment, the additional cost of the reader board would seem to be superfluous, because, an RV storage is not an impulse buy. It's something you go out purposely to see. Of course, advertising be what it is, every little bit helps, I guess, bringing attention to that facility, but, I do see this as somewhat of like, nice idea, helpful, but not necessary to announce this location. The same thing could be achieved, and plus on the freeway, you're gonna see this sign for 3 seconds, going by at 65 miles an hour. So you're not really gonna read much of anything. But anyway, that's not really my purview, but just an observation that, this may be, a lot of sign for a minimal purpose. Anyway, I have no further questions on that, Mr. Baker. You will have an opportunity for rebuttal at the end of the testimony, and I thank you for your testimony. Appreciate it. Next, we have Sue Cushland. Would you like to testify, please? Okay. Next, we have, under the neutral column, Carol Jones, please. Would you like to testify? And state your name and address, please.
My name is Carol Jones. I'm at 2811 Hillcrest Lane, Caldwell, Idaho, 83605.
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
My concern about this, And I signed up neutral because I wanted to wait and hear the proposal. Since I don't live close enough to basically be affected, but I have friends and neighbors that are affected by this. A lighted sign, 40 feet tall, and even at 48 square feet, that bottom section is all he's talking about. It would be 6 by 8, right? 48 square feet. He never actually told us the total dimension of this sign, but just the reader board portion. You have a lighted sign in a residential district that is gonna shine down on Phyllis Jewett while she's trying to sleep in her bedroom, and all the people that live in the fourplexes that he's already built there. And I hate to sound skeptical or demeaning regarding this developer, but the people in this community have been going through his numerous changes, appeals, since 2015. He's received extensions on completing this project. Started off as a lumber yard, changed to heavy equipment, then it was truck sales and service, then it was sixplexes, then it was fourplexes. We've had meetings, and here I have more than 1,000 pages of documents and research on this project alone. I can't see where there's no frontage on the freeway. There's no frontage road there, which they were supposed to put in. I've lived in that house that I have for 45 years in that location. I wasn't even in the city when we moved in there, and now we are. But why do you have to advertise to annoy the neighbors? What's wrong with a 6 by 8 foot sign? He hasn't told us the total dimension, but you're talking 400 square feet, is that what you said? That's huge. Yeah, that's stupid. It's overkill, it's unnecessary, and I know your sign man is gonna make a lot of money putting up the sign, and that's okay, that's free enterprise. But at the expense of everyone around there that has to put up with that light all night long. And like you said, the people going by on that freeway, that's an on-ramp or an off-ramp. He's not really on the freeway. He doesn't have freeway frontage. If he wanted that, he should have made a different location for the project he's on. What's he gonna advertise? You know, storage units. Okay, he has storage units. He was 2 years ago supposed to put in parks and common areas for the little kids in that development. It still isn't done. He doesn't do what he says he's gonna do, and I can't believe he gets away with it, but I sound like I'm rambling, I'm sorry, but I'm upset with this developer. As a former real estate broker, I find that appalling. I have a niece that has an engineering firm, half of what he's trying to do would never be approved anywhere else. And I think this is unnecessary. The sign is huge, it's too big, and, you guys need to put a limit, 48 square foot. He's not talking the total sign, he's just talking the bottom part. So how can you take a sign and split it in half and say, okay, this complies? You know, it doesn't comply. The total sign has to be considered, not just the reader board portion. I guess that's about it. I've ranted and raved, and I'm sorry if I sound like a radical, but we're tired. This community is tired of being here. Aren't we? I don't know. Maybe I'm old and cranky, but this is, I can't see that anybody is gonna pay any attention to that except to, bolster his ego. And I think it's overkill and unnecessary, and it needs to be scaled down to an acceptable level, something reasonable. Any questions?
No, but I do appreciate your testimony. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Next, we have Phyllis Jewett, please. Would like to testify?
Okay, first of all, I need to apologize because I cannot hear very well.
Would you please state your name and address?
What?
State your name and address.
Oh, okay. I am Phyllis Jewett, 403 Hill Lane, Caldwell, Idaho, 83605. And I live the back of my property is where all of this is going on. And it's a really sad thing. He doesn't need this great big huge sign. We're not Las Vegas. We don't need to be lit up like Las Vegas. I think it's ridiculous. And the sad part is just like Carol said, he was supposed to put in a common area. He was supposed to do for the kids things. He has done none of those. All he has done is pile dirt, and we're eating dirt because of all this piled in this great big mess. He never does anything that he is supposed to do. He has not done one thing so far. And we have to put up with it. And I'm sorry. I mean, I have been there since 1965. I don't need all of this. So I am really, really, really against it. But I'm against everything he's done up there, so. And you guys haven't stayed behind him and made him do anything that he's supposed to do. Okay? Thank you.
You didn't get the notice. Oh, right. The notice. You did not get the notice. You only got one, and it was last week.
Yeah, I didn't get the notice, so. But I live right by him, but. On the original sign. Hmm? The original sign, she didn't get that notice. You did not get the original notice? No, I didn't get the original notice. I'm sorry, I just don't hear very well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your testimony. Next, we have Terry Kohler. Would you like to speak, please?
Terry Kohler, 111 South Louisiana Avenue, Caldwell, Idaho, 83605.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. My comments have changed a lot here because we came to the meeting not really knowing. I was told it was a 90-foot sign, and maybe the top of it is going to be. So my comments might be very repetitive and maybe irrelevant to some of what's already been, because we were given none of this ahead of time. So just what's the narrative in the minutes here. And so I apologize for that. But I understand the sign company is here presenting today, but it really is Mr. Giuliani that's here before you. And like I said, he has come before the city council over the last, since 2015, and he will submit requests and then come in with change after change after change. So he may say that today, and next month they might ask for something else. Let's put it closer to the freeway. He's just not, his requests seem to be an inch at a time, and I have friends that are developers that say that that's the way someone like him operates. They wear down the neighborhood. I mean, when this started, we had hundreds of signatures and dozens of people here in the room. And look at us now, because Giuliani has just come back and back and back and back. And like the RV storage, I didn't even know he was gonna do that. That's a whole new thing. It might be in the plan somehow, but that, again, we're not in the notification zone. Only Phyllis is. She's within 300 feet. And as I understand, I don't know if it's a state regulation or it's a county, but only those within 300 feet get to receive notice. And Phyllis is our only one within that, because I live half a block away. So, Phyllis has neighbors on both sides of her that are not here tonight. A lot of people have just been worn down by this. They came early on, but they're just worn out. And like we said, his development is in 2 phases. So I don't know if this is gonna be on the first phase of it. I assume that it is. But the second phase of it, where there were supposed to be play areas and green areas for the children living there, he hasn't even started that because he claims that that's the second phase. So I still don't understand where this is gonna be on the diagram. I mean, there's so little information. This is what he did to us before. He gave us so little information that when we got to the meeting, we were blindsided. So by the time it had come through this type of a meeting, everything had been decided, and the city council basically said, sorry, there's nothing we can do. It's already been approved by planning and zoning. We were blindsided, and we didn't understand the process because, you know, it's just not something that's typical for a neighborhood to have to deal with. So again, there's nothing on there. The whole thing there, that's an outdated photo because all the storage units, there's a bunch of storage units currently on there. And so they're not telling us what is the orientation of the sign. He said it's gonna face the freeway, so does that mean, so Phyllis's house, if I may, Phyllis's house is, let's see, where's your house, Phyllis? No, right, that's Phyllis's. So again, the new signs do have different technology, I understand that, but they haven't told us what's the orientation of the sign. Is it gonna face so the people on the south end of Canyon Crossing, those people living in those apartments there, are they gonna have that light all night long? Is there a buzzing from the sign? I mean, is it next to the storage units on that side or that side? So if it's on that side of the storage units, there's kids right there. And there's housing that faces to the west, that's facing to the south, that's facing to the north. So there's just not enough detail to say whether it's okay or not. And again, it is, I'm like the city of Boise. I looked up the Highway Beautification Act of 1965. And so again, when we came to the meeting, we didn't know how close to the freeway it was even gonna be. I assumed he was gonna put it right on the edge of the property. So I don't know why it's 70 feet back, but they're changing that freeway there as we speak. So if they put the 70 foot in now, then how close to the freeway is it? So it might be better, the orientation of the sign. And maybe he's gonna change the orientation. It's just on a single post. I mean, it's on a pivot. Can they change the orientation if they don't like it? Do they have to come back and ask you if they can change the orientation? I don't know. I'm not an engineer. You know, it's not my purview, or it's not my expertise. It's just, this is so typical of John Giuliani to tell us so little. And I'll give you one other example, and then I beg your, he promised the neighborhood in 2016 or 17 that he was gonna build a berm because on Florida Street there, the street that goes north-south there, we just asked, can you put a fence or something up? Because we're looking at people's patios where they just store things, and can you just put a fence or something up? We said, well, I'll put you a berm. So he put up a berm. It's that high. From the street orientation to the top of his berm. I think it meets code because the apartments are so far down below. But we were thinking a berm like you might see on 2026 at the nice housing developments. That's just not the way John Giuliani operates. I mean, we asked him to put in some nice structural developments, something so it made it pretty. So eye-appealing for our neighborhood. He built the cheapest looking apartments in the valley. Sorry. And I apologize, my husband said not to say that. Men don't care what it looks like. But it's just the idea that he doesn't have any regard for Caldwell. The quality, as you enter Caldwell, this is where, when it started in 2015, I tried to tell the city council, 2026, the freeway right here, this is what people think of Caldwell when they drive by. And they allowed him to build that monstrosity. It's just too bad. And now he wants to put up this sign that's gonna block the view of a lot of the people that are renting his units. And once again, we don't know what direction it's gonna face. He might decide to face it that way if he doesn't think he's getting the right traffic. And maybe the signs don't pivot like that. They may not. But that doesn't mean he's not gonna come back and ask you if he can. That's just who he is, seems to be. And thank you for your time. Can I say one more thing before you sit down?
Yeah, come up to your mic, state your name and address.
Again, Carol
This
Jones.
is about the sign only.
Pardon me?
This is about the sign
Yes.
only. We're addressing the reader board of the sign, so does that pertain to that?
It's about the, luminosity, I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Direct your questions to me, please.
Okay. He said, 5% of capacity in the evening, but he never stated the capacity. So 5% of what? My question is, how many watts or?
Lumens.
5% of capacity in the evening, well, you
we've
mentioned
heard that testimony.
Yeah, she mentioned that. So that was just something I meant to mention and I forgot, so thank you for allowing me to bring that up.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. That ends the persons who have signed up to speak. I'll allow Mr. Baker 5 minutes of rebuttal, please, if you'd like to take that opportunity.
It sounds like there's history with the developer here that I'm not prepared to speak on. However, if the site plan is accessible through the computer, the one that I turned in as part of the permit application, that would show exactly where the pylon sign is on the property there. If it's possible to pull that up, I'd be happy to show that.
Is that the exhibit you're talking about?
Yeah, that's the exhibit there.
Yeah, I note the staff exhibit labeled A3. It shows it 108 feet from the eastern boundary along the property line, 15 feet back from the property line. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes.
And you said it was 36 feet from the water and sewer line easement. That's from the freeway side?
Yeah, there was concern raised during the testimony against that there was no map or aerial shot. If we could bring back the aerial shot that showed the stored buildings there.
That's exhibit A3.
Yeah, on the map.
So where are you getting, so it's actually 36 feet further back than shown on this exhibit?
Yeah, on the aerial satellite view that we had on the screen earlier, you can see that last set of storage buildings there on the, toward the east. Right there, move it a little bit more toward the east. And, yep, the pylon sign's scheduled to go to the, where your cursor is at, to the east, right down below, right there, yes, in that area.
So please, clarify from the property line, the base of that pole sign would be how many feet?
I'd have to grab that, but the pole sign would be located, the property line, is about 100 feet from the I-84 median, or excuse me, the easement. It's tough to see with different layers, and this is not the Canyon County map. I don't think that's the property line superimposed there, but,
Yeah, okay, there it is.
oh, there it is.
So it's 36 feet from that?
Yes,
Okay. Is that in your application?
yes. So I should
Because
also,
the map shows 15 feet.
from,
this
is
one.
that the property line?
Well,
The,
yeah, I assume it is.
yeah,
So there's another 21 feet difference from what that shows. Okay, the question that came up from the testimony is, when I don't know what you measure the lumens at 1 foot distance or whatever distance, you're 1 foot away from that reader board. What is the high output lumens rating for that? The highest output.
0.3 foot candle above the ambient light environment. So on a very bright day, full sun, no clouds, that the sign would be operating at 100% brightness in the middle of the day, sun directed on it. At night, pitch black, it would go down to as low as 5% of that brightness capability. And so the
Okay, so
a foot candle is a unit of measurement that shows brightness. So a third of that is what this sign operates at over the ambient light.
and at nighttime, if you were, say, at the neighboring property, how visible would that be?
If you're looking directly at the sign, you would see it oriented toward the freeway. If you're more than 140 degrees, it would drop to 50% of that brightness level, just because you're not at that angle of viewing. And at 180 degrees, it drops to 0. So.
Mr. Baker, I have your application here. Okay, you talk about the total surface area is 324 square feet, but your drawing shows 427 square feet.
The 327 is the canyon crossing portion of that. The special use permit we're applying for, it seeks to expand the electronic section of that for 98 square feet more.
Okay, so that's addition to the 324.
Yes.
Okay, that's not clear.
And I should also point out that if this were approved, there's also another sign permit we must apply for, where we're required to document the landscaping around the sign. And if we don't conform with that, it will not pass inspection. So that we're on the hook as the sign company to make sure the landscaping base gets put into place as part of that permit approval.
So, Mr. Baker, just, your letter doesn't seem to state a clear purpose, for exceeding the allowed size and area of the reader board. Would you, for the record, state the clear purpose for that, for the exception?
Yeah, given the eastbound and westbound, traffic on I-84, that sizing was deemed appropriate by us and working with the owner to make sure that they're able to get their message, in a large enough format to the people that are most likely to use the storage facility, which are those people that pass by it often. In this line of business, once a vacancy happens, you're on the hook to fill the vacancy in the storage unit rather quickly, or you're losing money, which is why the owner has opted to maximize the square footage he can try to get for that sign.
Mr. Baker, do you have any kind of matrix that, I guess, that would look at the visibility of a sign versus the amount of traffic that would generate for the sign owner? I mean, there's some business plan here.
Yes.
You know, I'm not in the sign business, I don't know what, but, you know, I guess it's the bang for the buck factor, if you would.
Yeah, for every square foot, every 50 square foot of signage you add, you can expect a certain amount of increase in revenue for your business, which I can't quote those exact numbers, but that does factor into the selection of spending the amount of resource, time, and money on a sign that size. It will allow him to realize the potential of making sure his storage facility is fully rented.
Okay. Well, it still seem to be, well, what I'm looking for is a compelling reason to consider the exception. And so you're telling me that by doubling the size of the sign, the owner might realize perhaps double the revenue as generated by that advertising? Is that
Yeah, if
the
he
way you-
cannot, if he's struggling to reach passing traffic going eastbound on I-84, which is 250 feet or so away from where the sign is at, if he can't effectively advertise to those people because the sign is too small to be readable, then yes, he will lose that revenue opportunity.
And one other question, was this considered to be located at any other place on the site?
No, this has been on the original site plan since we proposed the sign project.
Okay.
There's a completely separate platted billboard on further down, but that has nothing to do with this development.
Okay. And do you have any more comments, sir, that you'd like to add?
No, I think.
I appreciate your testimony. Thank you very much. I do have a question for staff. Mr. Baker just referred to an approval, I assume, for this sign. Has the sign, minus the reader board, is this sign already received an approval for this pole sign, this location? And we're only looking at the reader board.
Jerome, I'm speaking. The request is for the reader board. My understanding, from the testimony is that the sign, size of the sign, meets code. It's the reader board portion that does not meet code.
And, Mr. Mapp, there's been no previous, application approved for this specific sign?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, I will, thank you all for your testimony, close the public hearing part of that and go to the analysis. Go back to, earlier I cited the purposes of a special use permit in the ordinance here, ordinance 100304, special use permit procedures and general provisions, uses which require the granting of a special use permit are deemed to possess characteristics that require review and appraisal by the commission to determine the following: whether or not the use would cause any damage, hazard, nuisance, or other detriment to persons or properties in the vicinity. That's something that we've considered here. We've had testimony that perhaps it might provide a nuisance and a detriment to persons or property in the vicinity. Item B under general provisions, a special use permit may be granted if the proposed use is conditionally permitted by the terms of the ordinance and subject to conditions pursuant to specific provisions of the ordinance. The ability of political subdivisions and so forth to provide services proposed use, and it's not in conflict with the comprehensive plan. These are the bases upon which the city considers applications for a special use. And goes on to say that conditions of approval items that will minimize the adverse impact on other developments.
Mr. Hearing Examiner,
Mr. Mapp?
did you close the public hearing?
Pardon?
You did, okay. Just,
Yeah.
just missed.
Yes, I closed the public hearing. I would reopen it if you had a comment on that. Okay, yes, public hearing has been closed. Thank you, Mr. Mapp. So with this application, they're seeking a reader board sign nestled in a 426 square foot sign overall, and, with two sides. The reason for the request, is stated by the applicant, is that it would provide more business, perhaps for the facility, particularly the storage of RVs. And you stated the sign of effectiveness is based on the size of the reader board, its readability, and its ability to provide value or worth to the owner of that sign. I'm not sure that's a compelling enough reason in this case, in light of the criteria I cited in section 100304 about whether or not the use would cause damage, hazard, nuisance, or other detriment to persons or properties in the vicinity. That's a balance that has to occur to fulfill the evaluation analysis of a special use application. The staff report does not make a recommendation in either direction. Unfortunately, the staff member, Mr. Jones, who wrote this, is unavailable tonight to, address his analysis of that. The engineering, department, Mr. Franz, had no, overriding concerns, except to say that, the sign shall not encroach on any platted right-of-way or public utility easements, which it seems to fulfill that. There are two things here that being asked. One, the sign itself in its totality. It's 426 square feet. Location roughly 36 feet from the freeway. And that would comprise the bulk of the sign. The second thing specific to the special use permit is the size, the square footage of the reader board, which they're asking to double that allowed by the ordinance, except given us the allowance of a special use permit hearing such as this. Looking at the staff report, we have comprehensive plan goals and policies stated that, which I find germane to this, but there are one cited here, particularly on page 4 of the staff report, goals and policies, land use, says establish land use management policies that protect property rights and the environment, maintain a high quality of life, provide adequate land for all types of development, and adequately buffer non-compatible uses. Policy Guide 1-1, underneath, or Policy 1-1, guide the growth and development of land uses in such a way that the health, safety, and general welfare of residents will be protected. This is a policy that can, that works both ways, protecting the neighborhood and protecting the value and investment of commercial proposals such as this. If I to fulfill that, this proposal does not make a convincing enough argument to ensure that the general welfare of residents will be protected, with that exception to the goals and policies section of the comprehensive plan analysis. Move on to the findings, facts. The Caldwell hearing examiner accepts the facts outlined in the staff report, public testimony, and evidence list. All adopted city ordinances, standards, and codes were used in evaluating the application. The proposed use is conditionally permitted by the terms of the ordinance and is subject to conditions of approval. And I will note at this point, the findings of facts of which I read from the special use permit procedures 10-0304, item general provisions 2, subitem A, as follows. I read in the record, whether or not the use would cause damage, hazard, nuisance, or other detriment to persons or properties in the vicinity. Use that to substantiate my conclusion here. The conclusions of law, the Caldwell hearing examiner has the authority to hear this case in order that it be approved or denied. The public notice requirements were met, and the hearing was conducted within the guidelines of applicable Idaho code and city ordinances. The ordinance decision, based on the findings of facts and conclusions of law, the Caldwell Planning and Zoning Commission or hearing examiner hereby orders that case number SUP 22-6, a request by David Baker of AIM Sign on behalf of Canyon Crossing Storage for a special use permit to install a 98 square foot electronic reader board on a 40-foot pylon sign in the C3 Service Commercial Zone at 2704 Owyhee Street in Caldwell, Idaho, is approved with the following conditions of approval. The staff has listed conditions 8.2 through 8.5. I'm going to add a couple of conditions here. First of all, the condition 8.6, the sign installation shall comply with the attached exhibits A2, A3, A4, and A8, and A1, which is the detailed elevations and drawings dated February 4th, 2022. And new condition 8.7, the sign is applied for the cited exhibits will be allowed, but the reader board itself will be at the allowed dimension of 48 square feet. And with that, I will close this hearing. Thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is case number ZON 22-3, request from Antonio Conta for rezone of parcel R35372 on 0.38 acres from N1 to C3. And with that, I would ask the staff to make their presentation. Well, one addition to the last hearing there, I'm entering the application for SUP 22-6 Canyon Crossing Pylon sign. I'm entering the application itself as an exhibit. And that shall be SUP 22-6-1. And thank you very much. Mr. Matt, go ahead, please.
Mr. Hearing Examiner Jerome Knapp, 621 Cleveland Boulevard, Plan Director for the City of Caldwell. A request by Antonio Conte for a rezone of parcel R35372. It's 0.38 acres from M1 Light Industrial to C3 Service Commercial for the purpose of developing a drive-through coffee shop on the corner of 21st Avenue and Commercial Way here in Caldwell. Comprehensive plan designation in this area, according to the staff report, is identified as commercial services. As mentioned, Mr. Jones was ill today, so I'm pitching in. Okay, Mr. Hearing Examiner, what we show here what I have here is the city map. This is the city map of the area. We have Franklin, 21st Street. This is commercial. This is Spec Street. The site is located in this center portion here. That's bordered by the streets mentioned, 21st and commercial. Could you go to the next one? It says comp plan. Okay. This is the zoning map. The zoning map shows that this area here is industrial. This is commercial, C3. And then the blue area here. I'm sorry, this is industrial here. Okay, can we go to the next map? Okay, this is the comprehensive plan map. Where the blue is manufacturing, the red is commercial service, the green area is environmental sensitive, and the blue area, as said, manufacturing. So, as you can see in the comprehensive plan map, it identifies this as a commercial zone. This is the comprehensive plan map, not the zoning map. And the zoning map has a different designation. So what the applicant is requesting is to rezone this industrial area by the zoning ordinance to the underlining comp plan designation of commercial service. On the, we go back to the site plan that's being proposed. No, the other one. Yeah, thank you. This site here is basically an island of land surrounded by roadways. The applicant proposes a coffee shop, is his request, which is at this location. Their parking spaces are located along this area, and then their queuing area for the automobiles is here, and loop around the building and then exit out at this location. So this corner of commercial way allows a patron to come in, queue at this location, go around the lip of the building, receive their coffee, and come back out again. During our roundtable meetings that we had, I had concern about the queuing, and they've done a great job of making that change. There was a discussion about ingress and egress, but engineering felt that that the ingress and egress was met the city's requirements. One of the requirements we have as well is landscaping, and the applicant has provided a landscaping plan. In that landscaping plan, it shows conifers and deciduous trees. Um, as we reviewed this for this construction drawings, an applicant needs to place on notice, we want to make sure that the trees are not in a vision triangle of the property that would cause any type of conflict. When I first looked at this, I thought that there would be a lot of conflict, but there's a lot of median space around the parcel. So it seems that those trees could be located in a number of areas that would not be a conflict in regards to this particular development. The staff recommend approve this request with conditions as stated in the staff report. Other than my comments regarding engineering, engineering has a list of requirements regarding the development plans or water, irrigation, etc. Those are on the record in the staff report. Garbage location, I should mention, is at this point, which is to the north. I believe that's west of the site, or east, I would say. Other than those comments, staff doesn't have any additional comments to make. I will stand for any questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mapp. Question may not be germane to this application, but there is a lot of land around this parcel. And if we could go back to the zoning map and look at, you have to understand, I did the zoning map for the city of Boise for decades, and I'm a completist. And is there any value in zoning around that parcel as well as the parcel itself? Instead of having this little divot of C3 in the middle of that green,
Well,
is that any value to the city if we're looking at a rezone to rezone that whole little triangle? Or is that not really a valid concern of anybody's? You know what I mean?
the request is this area right here,
Right.
and that's all we can rezone at this time. Even if we wanted to extend the boundaries, we could not do that because that was not advertised. Does it make sense? Yes, it makes sense. The city has been, is looking at going through the entire zoning ordinance, land use map and the zoning map to do an update. We have not had the opportunity to do that in the last 2 years, but I know that's a priority of the planning department to try to get the comprehensive plan map, the zoning map, and the zoning ordinance and the comprehensive plan updated.
So this is not the time or place to propose just making all the lines match up there in the
No,
C3
sir.
zone?
Not at this time.
Thank you. And more specific to this application, they're asking for a zone change. The staff report talks in terms of just this use as a drive-up coffee establishment being entered into a development agreement to limit the use to just such a coffee drive-up establishment. My question to you, Mr. Mapp, is there value to broaden that definition a little bit to just say drive-in food services? Or do you see a value or a need to make that a little more generic as opposed to this one specific type of use?
Mr. Hearing Examiner, the concern that the planning department would have is that if this use ceases operation, that we may see some other land uses that definitely would not be compatible to this particular request before you this evening. With saying that, the plan director believes that there may be other land uses that would be compatible, and here's the reason why. If an applicant wanted to do a restaurant to seat people, there's no parking spaces for that. If someone went to, instead of serving coffee, they wanted to serve donuts, and it was to drive a donut business, I can see that could be compatible. If it was jumbo juice that wanted to serve smoothies, I think that would be compatible. I think even if there was a business that was only serving sandwiches and you just drove in, got your sandwich and left, that could be compatible as well. The issue is that there is no parking other than employees on the site. So it may be something for the hearing examiner to consider, that it would be a exclusive drive-through windows, drive-through business that would not require any seating for their customers. With the caveat is that if the particular business creates a traffic hazard, and that was always a concern regarding the queuing of the cars, that they would not be queuing in the public right-of-way. That would be a major concern.
Thank you,
So
Mr.
the
Mayor.
answer to the question is yes, based upon if it's only a drive-through establishment.
I think that's a good point. Let's see. Well, I had no other questions, but we'll get back to that, Mr. Mapp. And at this time, I'd like the applicant to make his presentation, please, and we'll continue that discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mapp.
Good evening. My name is Antonio Cunti with Arcan Estable, 7661 West Riverside in Garden City, Idaho. I'm here on behalf of the owner, who couldn't be here, but I think he's on a Zoom call, listening in. I have a PowerPoint presentation just to, just showing some, a little bit bigger picture and make it a little prettier. So what we are requesting is a rezone of a parcel between Franklin, 21st, and Commercial. It's surrounded on two sides by roads. On the third side is the Norris Canal. So it's pretty limited potential. You can see from the aerial photo on what we have. Currently, the zoning is M1, light industrial, where we are proposing a C3 commercial zoning, which would match what's to the east, will match what's to the south and to the north, if I remember correctly. Comp plan designation, commercial service, which commercial C3 fits with it. And right now, the land is vacant. We just had some landscape abatement issues that we're taking care of today. Between yesterday and today, there were some concerns about weeds and a few other things on the site. So developing this site will just increase the visibility, increase the value of the area. I know there is a car wash coming right next to it. So this is just an addition to an already well-developed commercial site. The existing site, like I said, is just vacant. There is nothing there. We did a neighborhood meeting. I was the only one attending. A lot of traffic, Great location, a little challenging on topography, and that's why probably the access is coming off of Commerce, just because on the other side there's a steep hill. It's an existing driveway, but it's not that easy to navigate off of Franklin. The existing zoning, like we said, right now the zoning, it's surrounded by, commercial on two sides. The rest is M1. All those areas that you were mentioning around it, that are M1, those are public right-of-ways. So it's not something that we can address unless the city decides to move forward with it. And the Notice Canal, that canal, there is really nothing much we can do with that portion of it. Last, I have a landscaping plan. I know this has been a topic of interest on this project. The idea is to have, some buffer along the Notice Canal and to the south. The portion to the north, we like to keep it open, sits high, just for visibility reasons. Access, like we said, is coming off of commercial at this point. Any questions?
Thank you, sir. I do have a question here. Hang on a second. About the design, do you have elevations for this design?
No, we don't, because we have not secured a brand yet on a client. So we do not have any building layout and elevation. Each coffee facility, they have their own branding, their own style on what they want to look like.
Dutch Brothers or something?
Yeah, Dutch Brothers or, all the other ones, Starbucks, et cetera. So it would be, hard for us to present you something, then we change the brand, and it's gonna be completely different. So it may seem like a bait and switch, so we decided not to present an elevation at this point.
Okay, the application or the analysis from staff recommends the adoption of this site plan that's on the screen right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just wondering, what else goes with that, what the look is for the use, but I appreciate your explanation.
Yeah, there were some alternative considered on double stacking along the east boundary line. Instead of, losing some landscaping and maybe double stack vehicles. Not sure where that one went. I just saw that there was some, conversation, discussion, to see if that would help alleviate some of the concern of traffic backing up on a city right away. But we can, we're gonna have to go through design review at one point, and we can discuss that at that point.
Okay, just a sort of side question. This exhibit in front of us, do you have that in a paper form, or does the staff have that in a digital form? So I'd like to enter that as an exhibit.
Yeah, I can give you as an exhibit.
Yeah.
This was, if I'm away from the microphone, those are just extract that I took out of the original application. I just made them a little big, a little more readable.
Okay, yeah, that it is, so that's why I asked. Thank you very much, sir. We'll call this exhibit ZO 22-3-1, and it's the applicant's presentation. Sir, we had a discussion, planning director, about broadening the description of the use a little bit. Does that present a concern for you?
No, I think I can speak on behalf of the owner. I think if you broaden the description, it would be a good idea. Not limiting to coffee, but, allowing for other possible uses like juices, like you were mentioning, or, sandwich place, or something that is just a drive-through facility. Because I agree, there is no room for parking for patrons. There's no way we can fit any parking out there. So if you can broaden, I do not have any concerns.
I concur. What we're trying to do is make it more accommodating, case the coffee thing doesn't come through, there's another use that we wouldn't have to come back to this board
Mhm.
or the council, to change that, so we wanted to broaden it a little bit. Mr. Mapp, you had a question?
Yeah, Mr. Hearing Examiner, two, items that you had just mentioned. Before you have a landscaping plan, the applicant has proposed, landscaping goes to the sidewalk.
Okay,
So this really drawing doesn't really depict, that requirement. This landscaping plan is for reference, I would, state. The applicant would work with staff on a final landscaping plan.
okay,
Second item is regards to the exterior of the structure. We do have some design guidelines, and, we want to work with staff, we will work with the applicant in establishing a final design. And so we would ask that a condition be placed that this final design of the, structure has to be approved by the planning department.
okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Mapp. Let's see. Thank you for your testimony very much, sir. I have no more questions. You'll have an opportunity for rebuttal. We do have one other person signed up for testimony. But thank you very much, and thanks for the exhibit.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Good luck. And with that, I have on Zoom, is it Jake Ekborgen? Is that testimony available? Is that person available?
Not here to give a testimony. I'm just one of the representatives of the ownership.
Okay. Well, thank you very much then. With that, I'd like to have a little bit of a discussion with the staff. So, Mr. Mapp, your point about the landscaping, you're just saying that they have a landscaping design in front of us, and that needs modification.
The property, excuse me, hearing examiner, Jerome Mapp, plan director. This is a sidewalk, and this is the entire area of the site. So landscaping modifications will be required out in this area too. And there's various ways to do that. But we would have to have a revised landscaping plan. It may be more intense here, and then less intense in the surrounding area along the right of way.
Okay. Great. Yeah, I was wondering about that. It's sort of a no man's land around the property boundaries. But is it just sort of like weeds and shrubs today, or what?
Yes, shrubs, grass, different types of material. We don't have a xeriscape ordinance in the city of Caldwell, so we can't have rocks and things of that nature. So mayor and council likes grass.
Okay.
And so, but we'll work with the applicant on that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Mapp. Do you have any more comments?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. With that, I would allow the applicant 5 minutes of rebuttal, if you'd like that opportunity.
Thank you very much. We understand that we're gonna need to to talk and coordinate with staff to make sure that, we meet all the requirements of City of Caldwell. The only comment I would make is on the east side, that's the Norris Canal. So there is really not much landscaping we can do on the Norris Canal because we're gonna need to maintain it open for, maintenance equipment and all the other fun stuff that ties to that. But we understand that your requirement will, we'll need to expand the landscaping to the sidewalks, and we'll coordinate with staff to make sure that we meet the requirement. And same thing applies with the building elevations. We mentioned earlier that we want to make sure that the city has an opportunity to review the building elevations, which will be part of the process.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Does that
Thank you.
conclude your comments?
No further comments. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. With that, I'll close the public hearing testimony portion of this and go to the analysis. We have a property seeking a rezone, but it also, the application does include a site plan, landscaping plan for a proposed drive-through coffee commercial establishment. I think this would be an excellent use for a less than optimal property, a very challenging property. And I'm glad to see that somebody has the foresight to see that that might be a good addition to the commercial landscape of Caldwell City. In the staff report, staff has put together a description of the proposal and how it might comply with the comprehensive plan. And I'm looking at the staff report, pages 6 and 7, includes goals and policies to substantiate the implementation of this zone change and the proposed businesses thereon. Hearing examiner concurs with the goals and policies enumerated on those pages of the staff report. And with that, look at the findings of facts for the rezone. Caldwell hearing examiner accepts the facts outlined in the staff report, public testimony, and the evidence list. All adopted city ordinances, standards, and codes were used in evaluating the application. And page 8 of the staff report, conclusions of law for the rezone, ZO22-000003. The Caldwell hearing examiner has the authority to hear this case and recommend to the Caldwell City Council that it be approved or denied. The public notice requirements were met. The hearing was legally noticed and posted, and the hearing was held and conducted under the requirements of Idaho Code and city ordinances. The recommendation for the rezone, based on the findings of facts and conclusions of law, the Caldwell hearing examiner hereby recommends to the mayor and city council that case number ZON22-0.38 acres from M1 light industrial to C3 service commercial for the purpose of developing a drive-through coffee shop on the corner of North 21st Avenue and Commercial Way, Caldwell, Idaho, is recommended for approval with the following conditions of approval. And they are as follows. Their staff presents as conditions 8.2 through 8.7, with which I concur. With a change here to item 8.6 of the conditions, the staff report, it states the site will only be used for a coffee shop. We're going to broaden that definition a little bit. The site will only be used for a non-seating drive-through type restaurant with no indoor seating. and that's 8.6. 8.7, conditions of development agreement as prepared by the planning and zoning department shall be approved by the city council in conjunction with the rezone. And to that end, that's also addressed in 8.6. It would be part of the development agreement, or hopefully adding condition 8.8. The commercial land use shall be constructed in accordance with the site plan and design submitted by the applicant, labeled A1, A2, A3, A4, A8, and dated 5/3/2022. And these are considered general plans. They're not final drawings, but are conceptual plans. Item 8.9, adding 8.9, the construction of the project shall comply with the engineering memorandum exhibit PA-1, dated July 5th, 2022. And with that, I conclude this hearing and adjourn. Oh, one second, Mr. Mapp. Okay, I'm not done yet. I have the landscaping provision. Okay, let me catch up with myself. Adding condition 8.10, 8.10, the perimeter of the subject parcel is in open space off-site, but the applicant shall provide a landscaping plan to treat that with some kind of minimal landscaping to maintain the look desired by the city.
Hearing examiner,
Mr. Mapp?
Suggestion. On 8.8, where you speak about the existing landscaping plan the applicant has provided, at that point, you maybe say, in lieu of that plan, it will need to comply to the city's landscaping ordinance and provide the necessary landscaping to sidewalk, surrounds on the north and south side of the property, excluding the notice drain.
Okay. Mr. Mapp, you're suggesting that's part of condition 8.8?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I'll accept that if you will work out the wording to that effect. And I'll review that before it goes to council.
Sir.
Okay, and with that, there'll be no condition 8.10. That covers that thought. And with that, I will close this hearing and adjourn the meeting for the night. Thank you all for your participation. Appreciate it.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.